I feel like I always have to preface these types of videos by saying the same thing at the beginning, and it's so cliche that I hate bringing it up, but, you know, it's kind of necessary to say it. Everything can change with one phone call. That's it. All it takes is a call for Stevie Y and the representatives for Dylan Larkin to have a conversation, maybe try to make a few compromises here and there, and all of a sudden, boom, this entire video idea is shot down and put in its grave. But for now, at the time of recording this audio, that phone call hasn't happened yet, so we have the right to go out there and talk about this. So, what we're doing is we're going over onto an article on DetroitFreePress.com. It's a Helene St. James piece, but unfortunately, because the Detroit Free Press is behind a paywall, you have to go out there and have a subscription to read this article. So instead of going to the piece itself, we're going over onto Spectors Hockey from yesterday, January 30th, 2023. Because what Lyle Richardson does is he summarizes the piece from Helene St. James, that in which I wanted to talk about here. So links in the description are going to be both available to the Detroit Free Press article as well as the Spectors Hockey article. For those like me who do not have a Detroit Free Press subscription, you can go ahead and just look at Spectors. It provides you with pretty much the same information. But this is the summary of the Helene St. James piece. Did Dylan Larkin reject the Red Wings' 8-year offer? Helene St. James recently reported the Red Wings offered Captain Dylan Larkin an 8-year contract extension worth an AAV of $8 million. As there was no formal announcement on the deal, St. James concludes that the 26-year-old center rejected the offer. St. James speculates that the Larkin camp could be seeking something comparable to the 8-year $73.2 million contract, which is a 9.15 AAV, signed by Barzal with the Islanders. Larkin indicated there is no ill will between his camp and the Wings management. Spector's note goes out there and says this: it appears the two sides are still working towards bridging the gap regarding the dollars. There's been no indication that the Wings are shopping Larkin or that he's not interested in staying in Detroit. So, this is why I said at the beginning of the video, all this can change with one phone call, but as of right now, that call hasn't happened yet, so did the Red Wings go out there and offer Dylan Larkin an 8x8 only to have Larkin say no? Is his demand really in that range of Matthew Barzal and Barzal's 9.15? Does this make sense to kind of talk about them as if they're in the same sort of tier? Oh, the cap is going up. Oh, Barzal is younger. Barzal has X amount more points or fewer points, whatever. What exactly is the status update here? Well, if you go over to Matthew Barzal, he is indeed younger. He was drafted in 2015. Larkin was drafted in 2014. They're around the same age, although, as we had said, Barzal has that contract till 2031, making 9.15 AAV. That actually starts out in 2023-2024. In terms of points, though, Matthew Barzal this season has 43 points in 51 games played. Dylan Larkin also has 43 points, albeit in 4 fewer games. With that being established, though, Matthew Barzal does have the edge in terms of a career high. He had an 85-point season in 82 games played. That was his first year in the league with Anders Lee and Bailey, and John Tavares was there too. He won the Calder that season because what kind of rookie goes out there and has an 85-point year? It's kind of unheard of. But either way, Barzal, although he is playing on a team that's a lot less offensively potent than most, the New York Islanders and Barry Trotz, Lane Lambert sort of style hockey, it's not really high-flying, goal-scoring, points-everywhere type of hockey. It's more defensively minded. You see a lot of 2-1 games, etc., etc. So it's not just a sort of symptom of Matthew Barzal being better or worse than Larkin. It's just more so a product of the team he plays on, I feel. But at the end of the day, Matthew Barzal is still making a lot more money than Dylan Larkin is getting offered by the Red Wings for the next few years and beyond. We also had ourselves another article that I wanted to show you here from MLive.com. This is from a week ago. What's the most likely outcome in Red Wings Larkin contract talks? You could see in this article written by Ansar Khan, there's sort of a bullet point as to what the Larkin camp apparently wants. The sides have agreed on the maximum of an 8-year term. They remain apart on the AAV, though. The Red Wings would like him at 8. Larkin's camp is eyeing closer to 9. So Khan is saying it's 9. Helene St. James is saying maybe 9.15, similar to the Barzal deal. But at the end of the day, Dylan Larkin is asking for a little bit more. Now, whether or not there is some sort of a compromise that is reached in the next few days, we'll see whether or not that happens. But right now, if you look at just Dylan Larkin and the player he is, I get that he's a hometown dude, I get that he's been here for a while, I get that he's sort of the face of the franchise. I mean, he is the captain after all. Even though he produces points, even though he does all these things, I don't know if Dylan Larkin is a $9 million player. In fact, I don't even know if he's really an $8 million player either. I could understand giving him 8, especially as the top dog, the top of the food chain type of asset on the Red Wings, but anything above like 8.2, 8.5, I'm starting to feel is an overpay. Sure, you could say the cap is going up, there's a lot of reason to be okay with giving that amount of money to your guy who is a first-line player, your face of the franchise, captain who has been shouldering through it all in this rebuild, but like, $9 million for 8 years for Larkin? That's quite a lot. Let's go over onto the Detroit Red Wings subreddit and look at some comments made. This was a post showing off how Larkin is not one of the top point scorers in the NHL and asking the question if a guy like that should be worth $9 million. Here's a little conundrum brought up in the comments here by CD23TOL. Would you rather overpay Larkin by $1 million a year and then the cap goes up by the third year of his deal and it's not too bad, or add 3 to 4 years to the rebuild because we now have 0 top 6 centers and 0 lottery luck? Another comment thread says this: Larkin is not worth $9 million, period. I don't care if he's the captain or a Michigan boy or something about the cap is going up in a few years. Don't overpay players. The reply here from the Bro69 says, I agree, but if we lose him, we lose 5+ years of the rebuild. He's the face of our franchise and easily our best player. I don't particularly want to pay him $9 million either, but I'd rather keep him around than let him walk. Drummer DKS says, tying up an extra $2 to $3 million a year over what he'll get elsewhere for the sake of comfort and nostalgia and scared what-ifs is what got Holland into his contract fiasco snowballs in the first place. They don't and shouldn't get an extra pay bump for loyalty. I love Larkin, but if he's going to leave over a couple million a year he hasn't earned compared to others at that price, that's on him. There are a few other conversations talking about how Stevie Y did the negotiations for some other big stars in Tampa Bay, Nikita Kucherov and Steven Stamkos, a lot of the top dogs in Tampa Bay, and Stevie Y was able to get their prices a little bit further down to the $8-9-ish million territory. And of course, there's state tax and everything that comes into play there, but for Larkin and Michigan, it's a little bit different, so we'll see whether or not Stevie Y is able to pull one out of his hat again, if he's able to make a contract extension that pleases the fans with the dollar amount and that pleases the Dylan Larkin camp as well. What are your thoughts on what Larkin is apparently asking for? What are your thoughts on him rejecting maybe an 8x8 as pondered by Helene St. James on the Detroit Free Press? Again, the articles will be linked in the description, as well as the MLive article wherein we pulled that other stat from Ansar Khan. But either way, talk to the comments your thoughts about Larkin and the contract extension process. Do you think ultimately he's going to re-sign with the Wings? Is it just a matter of time? Or are you actually starting to get worried that the chance of him returning to Detroit next season is more than 0%? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.